Hi everybody and welcome. This is Learn QuickBase in Minutes. This is one of the webinars we have each day actually. We have 10 webinars a week. This is an introduction to QuickBase. We'll look at the core functions and features of QuickBase, what it is. You can invite any of your team members to come. You can use any of the webinars as you like. We're part of Intuit. TurboTax, Quicken, and QuickBooks might look familiar to you as they do in our household. We processed over 53 million income tax returns this year with our TurboTax product. We have over 70 million customers using Intuit products. There's a sensitivity to data. We apply that to QuickBase just as well. We treat everything like it's a banking transaction. We have over 50 of the Fortune 100 companies. Companies like JetBlue and Google use QuickBase, but you don't have to be a Fortune 100 company to use QuickBase. There are companies like Memento Press who use us for virtually everything. Things like customer tracking of detail as well as order processing. Uh, every company has a need for different types of business applications, and this is a listing of the categories that are most commonly used inside of QuickBase, but it is a category. We have over 300 applications on our website now. You can use any and all of them now. Some of them are project management. Some people think of QuickBase as a project management application and then are surprised to find that you can use us for CRM, keeping track of sales opportunities, for time cards. You can keep track of documents online if you'd like to. Anything that you have information about that you need to move around, report on, and get collaborative with your team is great for QuickBase. Now, the types of QuickBases that you can build all rely on the idea that we've done the heavy lifting. Some people refer to us as a software as a service, a platform as a service, and I think that's because, and both of those descriptions, by the way, are accurate. We're also an online web database, if you want to think of us like that. But the core things that make it easy to replicate or create a solution with is the idea that you can have and create forms. And the forms are a way of collecting the data. Now, you can always import from a CSV or a text file if you'd like to, and pretty much every database can export into those formats. So you can import or transition your databases from those locked up applications that are packaged applications into QuickBase and get up and going in minutes. But so we have forms for data entry. We have reports, any kind of report that you can imagine. There are reports like pivot tables. There are pie charts, graphs. There are Gantt charts, timelines, calendars. There's a whole bunch of different types of reports, as you'll see. You can also put those reports, the ones that make the most sense to you, in a dashboard, and that's what is represented down below actually here with a grouping of these particular type of reports. So you can have as many dashboards as you like. What that means is that clients and customers, you could actually create an environment for them, which is what I hope to show you here in just a second. Email is a way of saying workflow. If you're talking about sending somebody a notification when something happens, absolutely, you can send notifications. What if something doesn't happen? Then you can send them reminders. What if management wants to know what's happening? You can create reports that get distributed with subscriptions, which is that's the workflow part of QuickBase. The last of these five is the roles, and I guess that's another way of saying if you can say something out loud to describe the way people can work within QuickBase, or that you want them to work within QuickBase. Maybe it's a customer just wanting to see their information but nobody else's information. You can do that inside of QuickBase. It's a very powerful part of QuickBase. So let's take a look at QuickBase. We're going to open up a browser. I'm going to toggle over here. You can see I've got an Internet Explorer up and going. It doesn't matter if you're a Mac, a PC user. We support Safari, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. This is the My QuickBase page as you come into My QuickBase. Now, it might look like this with icons on yours. Either way is totally fine. I happen to like the detail view. I actually have hundreds of applications and it's easier to look at in this way. You can also take yourself and right click and delete, remove, set categories here, or you can just click on the headers and sort which one you've most recently been in. So let's create an application. Now, we could choose a whole bunch of different applications, something like project management. Maybe it's sales or customer support. Maybe you keep track of marketing campaigns, or you're part of the IT group keeping track of IT requests, assigning them to people for resolution. We've got over 50 applications that are in the top part of this area here. Most of them have data in them, which is sample data. You can delete that data and get your application going right away just by selecting any of those. But you can also import your data from any other database. You can browse for them up here, or you can cut and paste the information right in here, and it will create an application on the fly with all 5 of those core functions made for you, so you can begin using your data within a minute. Let's take a look also down here at the application library. Now, I mentioned over 50 of the Fortune 100 companies are using QuickBase. And what's wonderful about that is they've submitted their best practices, their best idea of how to use QuickBase. And you can benefit from that because you can use any and all of them. You can see here there's 250 of them that are here. Some of these have been put in here by QuickBase as well, like this new application down below here. This is a project management application. It's called 4-in-1. We can look at the details about what it is about this application and look at a tutorial if we'd like to before we get going. But know that you can have as many of these applications as you want. QuickBase is an all-you-can-eat kind of platform. It doesn't limit you by the number of applications. I'm going to click this Get Application button, which will open this application up on my dashboard here. I'll be looking at the things as an administrator of what this application is all about. Now, without going into all the details about this particular application, you can look at the video and the tutorial here and look at the feature functionality of this particular application and jump in where it makes sense for you, but know that you can move around anytime you want to. I'm going to do that by changing my identity here to a project manager rather than an administrator. I'm an administrator. This is the dashboard of a project manager, and it may reflect the type of reports that you like: timelines, graphs and charts. We're looking at task conditions. There are other kinds of reports. Maybe it's a report that you want to click and group by priority, in which case you can see that they're colorized based on their priority. It doesn't have to stay that way. You can click and group them and play with these reports and make them any which way that you want to. You can also email these to anybody you want to in the world. This is something that allows you to share something, and I'm going to just yahoo.com. This way we'll be able to see what one of these reports looks like, but it looks just like this when I open up my email, and it'll allow me to drill right down into the spot inside of QuickBase and get working with this immediately. Back to the dashboard. There are other types of reports. You can make a selection. These are all the sample projects we have going with their stages of completion here. The project conditions are represented. The details are underneath here. If I clicked on there, that would take me to the detail underneath that's represented for those 7 particular tasks. Now, you don't have to use QuickBase just for project management. We could be talking about any other application, but they all have these core functions, and I'm going to touch on those as best I can here. I'm going to click this customize over here so you can see how you can move these things around. Think of this as a very safe place. You can see the dotted lines. It can't fall off or cross the yellow line here. But you can select other reports that might be more appropriate to what you want to look at, like list all projects. Maybe you want to select a timeline or look at a pie chart in here, or change their order or sequence. Many different things you can do inside here, including turning on and off the columns and buttons and things like that. Now, we've created a number of dashboards already for you. In fact, all the applications have dashboards by default, but you can create new dashboards anytime you want to. We might create one for a client. Let's call that person Acme, John Acme, and we'll call this the Acme client. Now, if you have a whole bunch of these, and we actually have a retailer that has over 1,000 of those, let's call this Acme Staple Company. And then we'll make a couple of selections, like adding sections, like a report section. If you've wondered how do you get those reports, you can just select them and then add other sections, and those will be added too. Now this looks like a word processor, which it is. Welcome Acme Staple Company. And you can add things like add project. And if you highlight it, it actually becomes possible to create links like adding projects. I very well could say list projects and do the exact same thing and just call on a report. Any kind of report that you've got going, you can go at, I want to list all the projects. So use this word processor any which way that you want. Let's create this, italicize it. We'll colorize it with some color here, and know that you can also turn off these sections here too. So I'm going to say save and done. We'll visit this in a minute, but we've created a dashboard which is a friendly environment for a particular client that we're going to have. So let's go back to the dashboard. This happens to be a 4-in-1 application. We're talking about project management because it's such a popular topic. And you might have a need to look at projects and tasks because that's all it is that you want to get started with. Well, let's take a look at a report called Projects List All. This is sample data that you can delete and get going with your own data right away. Let's view Increase Web Presence. Now this is all about this particular project. The condition of them is represented up above, who the project manager is, the dates, when it's expected to start, all the tasks that have been assigned, as well as messages that belong to the team. Now this is one spot that is everything about this project, and you can make it your own. In fact, everybody's encouraged to right click and see what's there. You can do a number of different things. I'm going to take Project Manager and change it. What I mean by change it is that my team might call this a project lead, in which case I can just right click and change it. Now that has been updated across all the projects, and from this day forward it's called that until you change it again. You can empower anybody to right click and add things as well. Right clicking and adding allows you to add things that just don't show up there yet. Like for instance, a statement of work document. You might select any kind of additional field that you'd like to, including formulas, but we're going to add a file attachment here. We're also going to right click and add a picture here while we're playing around. And the whole purpose of me doing this is so that you can see how easy it is to make sure that it reflects your business process. Okay, what's the difference between a file attachment and a file attachment? Well, this one's going to be a document, this one's going to be a picture. Let's upload that information so you see what that looks like. It takes any kind of document that you want to. Let's go to an example requirements document here, for instance. Click and save. Now I'm going to do a picture this time, and you are right, it's just a file attachment. I'm going to put a Philly picture. It's a great skyline I happen to care for. Let's see. Let's save this. The data is uploaded into QuickBase. Now what we've done is we've put it in the middle of the table. If your team members are working on something, isn't it nice to know that they know exactly where on the table it is? Well, you can protect this in any way you can say out loud, as we had mentioned before with roles, but this is now available to your team. It's not locked up in your PC. Let's look at the revision history. It says that Kirk Tracy put this in here at 7:32, and here's a link to the document. Now the entire history, if this was a contract for instance, you might have 10, 20, 30 revisions to it. You'd want to keep all of those there for the historical record. Notice it says you can keep 3 copies of this. If I take this and right click once again and hit edit, you'll see how easy it is to change. When you right click something, I could change the name. Maybe let's call it Pics. But I'm here really to say instead of 3 versions, I might want 32 versions. I might want to keep all of them. But here's the other part I wanted to do. I wanted to say, you know, this is a file attachment, but if it happens to be an image, show it. And that's one of the main reasons for me coming in here, right clicking. So now we've got a place where we can keep track of documents and pictures, and all we did was right click. Now what happens if we update this and we want to update the document itself. Maybe we've got a need to make a change, and if this was a contract, you'll see what I'm talking about. The revision history is wonderful. The security components and the collision functionality is great. Now this shows, instead of Philly, it shows Boston, and you can see the revision history here represents two of them, and it's now unlimited. Let's restore this one to the official version. All the history is reflected there, and when I refresh the browser, you'll see it comes up to Philly. Now, we're looking at team, projects, and tasks. Notice there's no client or customer information here, and that we have tasks, we have messages, which we'll talk to about in a second. But what if we want to open this up and do things for departments or for clients or customers? Maybe we want to keep track of thousands of documents. I can shift this from being a project manager 1 to a project manager 2, and I've turned on functionality that wasn't here initially. It looks the same. We have all the same documents and the information is reflected below, but notice there's now a new area for documents, and this allows you to clone or create multiple documents and see that maybe I want to create them as an author. Albert Cruz created a graphic document for the marketing department. Well, in doing this, this allows us in the future to be able to do reports that extract that information or make meaning on that. And we can do this by creating a new report. And it happens to be about documents, so I'm going to create a new report. And what is it? Well, as I promised before, you can do timelines, charts, and graphs, and calendars, and a whole bunch of different things. But I'm going to do just something very basic. I'm only going to change the filter from which we're looking at. Imagine all the documents here. I want to know something about the documents. I want to know those marketing documents. And I could say where the business function is, contains, equals to, and there's many variations here, but whether it is a marketing document. And then I'll display it and see what we have. These are all the ones in the sample information for marketing. And I can now save this, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call these marketing documents. And there's many different things you can do with reports and create and send them off to different people. But here's that report now. It's an official report. In fact, you can find it right here now where it wasn't before. Now, sometimes people will say, I like this report, I'm going to email it to somebody. Absolutely. You can send this to anybody you want to in the world. Yahoo.com. And I could send a little note, but I'm going to hit send, and that's exactly what it looks like, and it's sent out by QuickBase on your behalf. Now, when you receive it, you might click on it and then say, I want to subscribe to this report. Any report like this you can just subscribe to. Say maybe I want to receive it daily or on Mondays and Tuesdays. Maybe it's monthly, or maybe I want to describe which team members I want to have also receive it. You can do that inside of QuickBase. It's the way we do workflow inside of QuickBase. Let's go back to the project. Something here that strikes me is we have no budgeting, we have no time cards. Notice that the assignments are assigned to people, and there's only days that are given. Some of these, the task condition is exposed here, or there's one of them that's overdue, but it hasn't affected the overall project condition here yet. So, what if we want to keep track of budgets and time cards? Well, we just outgrew this level 2, and now it's time to move to level 3. And in doing this, we haven't had to export the data. We haven't had to open up a new application. All the information is still here. But note that there is now company and customer information, that it's reflected up above here too. We have a whole table for customers, as well as the documents, which we had inherited at level 2. But resources, time cards are presented here as well. The financial information is starting to form here because this particular project really requires that. Down below, those same tasks are existing here. This one happens to now have resolution of hours. Not only are you assigned it in days, but hours too. Colleen is assigned that. We can if you think about it, total up all these hours and get an idea of what this is going to cost, both in hours, but also what their cost to the company is, so that you can get if you've got a number of different projects you're considering, it's great to know what the impact to the company is, the load on your workforce is, and this can do that. If we go down into the server purchase where Colleen has this, you will see here that it's assigned to Colleen, and it's expected to be 10 days right here. Let's move down a little bit further. She hasn't accepted or set the status of this. And if she's a good corporate citizen, she'll come in and say, I'm going to let the project manager know that I'm working on this, and that Albert will be testing on Friday. And she may even add a time card right here. And adding the time card is a way of retiring time against what was expected. I'm going to click save here. Now we can add time cards 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter. This assumes that it's me because it recognizes that I'm the person. But if Colleen was doing it, she would be represented. You can put in here that maybe it was a half-hour telephone call, and we'll say save. You don't have to keep track of those details there. If you ever want to just right click, you can remove them. But we now have a time card reflecting down here that a call was made. The budget of 2 hours has been retired, has been changed by a half hour here remaining. But you see the date stamp and the person stamp of who made some notes here. This will continue to be added to, so that anybody observing this, if you're a project manager or one of the team members, you'd be able to see that that information now is live within the system, because inside QuickBase you're using live information as you're using QuickBase, and it's updated everywhere. We can see down below here the approvals, the system tests, all of the tasks are reflected down below here. There's something else I wanted to show about this. We've got tasks, we've got messages and documents. What is this message thing? This is a message wall. Notice that there's a couple of comments that have gone on here. You can add messages and post them here for your team to see. Like this is the latest requirements doc. And maybe we want to browse for something like that. Any kind of document that you want to put in here, you can do. And when I say save, it'll just be posted into this, and people can observe it whenever they want to or do searches. But if I do this, I could set up this so that the email notification notifies the team. And this is a great way of elevating the importance of a particular notation. It's like putting the importance flag on an email so people will see it. That information is now represented down below here, the latest in the requirements. Now inside this requirement document is information about this requirements, and I'm going to open this up just to take a peek at something. Here's a word, audience. I was just looking for something that was unique. If I copied it, it's only because I'm going to do a search to find that later. It could be anything in here, any word, any phrase. We index these inside of QuickBase, even though they're secure and they're encrypted and they're stored inside our data center. You can now come up to the message wall at some point in the future, anytime in the future, and say, I need to find a message. And it was a year or two ago when we had some kind of a document that had the word audience in it, and you display it. It'll search through all of your documents. This is a really wonderful resource for a collaborative team, because anybody can post information in here and add new messages, which allows them maybe to indicate which project they're putting them into. And let's see, are we meeting at 4 p.m.? is a totally appropriate type of a thing that you might want to trigger off an attachment for, in which case the team could be notified with things like that. Let's go back to that project. Those conversations happen down here, and you can create general ones too, or look at them from the dashboard across all different projects and get an idea of what's happening just as easily like that. Okay, so we're looking at a project management application with time cards. There's one other component to it. You can increase the functionality of this to, let's say, project level 4 anytime you want, and it provides an additional layer of functionality, which includes keeping track of billable hours versus non-billable hours, gross profit margin, and profitability. And notice there's one other item that's added to this process here, and it's called service items. You can keep track of different billing rates for different process, but all the information is here. The same information. You haven't had to export or create a whole new application just because your needs have changed. In fact, you can shift at any time and move back down to project manager level 1 if you wanted to. It's a very versatile application. Let's look at some of the other core functions of QuickBase. How about notifications and reminders, things like that? If we are looking at tasks, for instance, and we're a project manager assigning a new task, we'd like to be able to think that QuickBase is going to send out an email on our behalf and take care of all the mundane tasks that we used to have to do by sending out spreadsheets with lists of tasks. QuickBase has a couple of these already made for you. They're asleep, but we can create a new one just so that you get an idea. See, here's the email notifications, and we will do that, and we'll call that anything. We'll call it new task assigned. And in doing that, we can decide to whom we're sending this, and it can be anybody in the world. It makes sense, however, to select the field that's already there called assign to. We'll definitely assign this task and want to notify that person whenever the task is added, modified, deleted, and you can define it under anything you can say out loud. In fact, if it's not represented here, definitely you want to check out this. That'll let you say virtually anything. Let's look at the subject of the email that we're sending out. We might say that this is a new task assigned. And if we hover over these fields and markers, you'll also see that you can open this up to take maybe project, give it a little space. Maybe any of these other field names are a way of merging the information without any complexity. Maybe the start date. And by default, QuickBase includes this checkbox, include a copy of the task. Now, to internal people, that's wonderful because it tells them everything about what the task's about. It fulfills them. If this is one that you want to send to a customer, you might do a custom message in which you might say, dear, and then select customer. And I think I've got probably company name in here. Dear customer, your project called, and we'll insert project name, is slated to start on, and then we'll say start date. So I could go on and on and on and continue this, but you can see how these things are easily selected by fields and markers, and it allows you to create graphics, put graphics in here, make it any which way you want. I'm going to just use the default, which is there's a new task assigned, a project task and start are there. I'm going to say save. This is listening for this event to happen. You can have as many of these as you want to, but it's really got an ear for this situation to trigger off this automatic process. Let's do that. We're going to add a task. And this applies to any kind of application. It doesn't have to be project management. Let's increase web presence here. That'll be the project. We'll create a brochure. And when we do that, we can assign it to anybody. I'm going to assign it to me so I can see what the email looks like. And maybe this is part of our planning process, and it's a threefold color with logo. And let's say it's going to take 4 days to do. And I could put a start date in here. Definitely can, and it figures out when the projected completion of this is. But what if it hasn't been approved yet? And I don't want to start something without getting an approval, so why don't I use this? This is a part of building your critical path, I guess you could say. Here we're looking for the approval, so I'm going to select approval. You can select as many of these as you want. They don't even have to be in the same project, but this has to be satisfied before we get a start date. So that'll be calculated in just a second here. Let's say this in total is going to be 4 hours. Notice 4 hours came up with $480. That's a placeholder based upon what cost the company to be working on this project. If you total those up, what you can do is get a really accurate budget in your project. So this has just satisfied the need to send an email notification, and this is exactly what's going to happen. This is going to be sent out to my Yahoo email. We'll take a look at what it looks like there in just a second. But notice also that these links are hot. These links are hot. You can see the approval. You can see the project name, who it's assigned to. When we look at the email, you'll notice that you can add things to your calendar and do things like that. Most definitely you can. But notice the dollars and cents here. If I was to tell you that since we're a project manager right now at level 4, what does it look like if it was a team member? Because a lot of people have concerns. So you might assign somebody as a team member. And in doing that, this is what it looks like for the team member. No dollars and cents. Now that isn't a hard, fast rule. You can change that if you want to. But this is the most common way that people approach project management. They don't need to see all the details. And by changing your identity, and you as an administrator can do this, I'm going to shift to a project manager. And now the financial information is back. Let's go take a look at my Yahoo email up above here and see if that notification has come in. New project management 4-in-1. Let's take a look at this one here. This is a view of one of the reports that was sent previously. Let me check my mail here really quickly. And in doing so, I'm going to press F5 to refresh my browser. We may see that there's a task that's been assigned, which is a natural thing to show up in your email. Usually I do this with my Outlook email, but I've got so many emails in there. I thought I would use a browser based, like with Yahoo here. Okay. There are other reports that are reflected here already. Here, new tasks assigned, as you can see, and you can click on any of these that you want to. As we wait for this to refresh, there it is. If I clicked here, it would take me right to that particular task. If any of these here, it would allow me to do that. And I'll go back to my inbox for a second here. And I still haven't seen that notification, but we'll visit that in just a second. Let's go back to my QuickBase Project Management Applications dashboard here. There's a number of different ways you can present reports inside of QuickBase. You can look at shared reports. These are the official reports, and it may be like timelines here. And you may actually want to change these. You may want to click and drag this information around. You might want to delete it, remove it. If you wanted to, you can click and hide different things that you want to and change it. You can also customize these here. And we'll customize this and just name it something else. We've just modified it. We're going to save it as increased web presence tasks, and this is a timeline, so I might even write that in here. Now I'm saving this and I'm calling this increased web presence, but notice that all these other projects, if I display this, notice that all the projects are presented here. Customer service, increased web presence. I can at any time customize this as well. And customizing it allows me to step back and in the filter say, not only do I only want to see the ones that start on or after today, but I also only want to see those where the project contains web presence. And in doing that, let's display it first. Yes, this is it. It's just one. So I'm going to save and overwrite it, kind of like updates the report. Now that document is increased web presence timeline indicated here. There are other kinds of reports you can do. Pie charts, graphs, and calendars. Here's a listing of all the tasks, and you can see some of them are colorized. You can colorize things based on anything you can say out loud. These happen to be based upon days overdue. If days overdue is greater than 0, then make them pink so they're visible. Notice that there's all these other projects, whether they're completed or not. The information is here. We can do something very similar to like what we just did. We can customize this. And in doing that, we're walking backwards. We're going to filter the information and only look for those where the project contains web presence. And let's display it before we save it as a new name. Yes, it's just one project. So we'll save this as increased web presence tasks, we'll call this, and make this available so that all members of the team can see it. And now there's a new report right underneath the timeline called increased web presence tasks, and you can call on that anytime you want. As before, we could group these just by clicking the headers. Maybe you want them by priority, by status. You can hide things in here too. Click, hide, click, hide. You can do a number of other things too. I happen to like these grouped by the project itself, so you have a little header here. That's great. We don't have to always see this row if we didn't want to. But this comes into view and says, you know, I like this increased web presence task. I'm going to overwrite it and save this with the new view of the world. Notice that the approval is November 2nd, and it goes to January 27th. There is also functionality called Grid Edit. This changes this into an editable spreadsheet where you can take something like Colleen is assigned to and just click into it and create something else. I want Albert to take over these, and in doing so, it updates all of them just like that. Let's move over for a second and look at this November 2nd date that we had here. Remember, it went out to January 27th. What if we change this to December 1st? And which is really a possibility. The critical path that's inside here will automatically be updated. Let's save this so that we get an idea of what's happened here. Save and done. The assignment, Colleen being on vacation, is now reflected here. The dates now push us out to 2/17. And that report is right here. You can create private reports too that don't pollute this common area here, and that's very empowering. It's kind of like bookmarks. I didn't really get into things like moving things around, but you can definitely move things around and group them. You can email them just like we had done before. You can also export the data to a spreadsheet. Now, when I export this to a spreadsheet, it opens up Excel and pastes just the tasks that were in that report there. And the same thing happens in the inverse. You can take this information, right-click, copy it, toggle back over to QuickBase, and paste this information in here just as easily. I want to import data into your QuickBase. Import from a file or a clipboard. These are tasks, so I'm going to put them into tasks and paste this here and say import. Now it recognizes that these already exist. But if I said, well, what is the identity of them that tells them that they already exist? It's this right here. This is part of that critical path here. I can say I don't want to import that information. And let's import now. And these are going to look like brand new tasks. 8 brand new tasks are here. Let's list all the tasks, and we'll see that there's a bunch of yellow flags on the left side here indicating there's some new tasks, these 8. And if I drill down into the individual ones here, you'll see that all the data is here just on the import. Let's go back to that report, because that grid edit we used before to update the dates and assignments for Colleen to Albert Cruz, we can use this grid edit to do a number of other things too. Like we may want to just highlight the ones we've just installed and just hit delete on your keyboard, and it's a quick way of updating a whole bunch of different content that you have inside your project management application. There, we've updated that information. So we've set up reports. How about inviting Acme in, showing them how the permissions work, and seeing how the invitation process works? When you use QuickBase, this is a real strong part of QuickBase, this idea of being able to define roles. This is how people behave inside, what they can see and what they can do. And there's a number of them already created, but we're going to create a brand new role for Acme, and it's going to be the Acme client role. And you can create generic ones that hover over all different clients if you wanted to, but this is specific just for Acme. Remember I said what you can see and do? This is the do part, the permission, and this is the see part, the user interface. We're going to get to that, but let's say we're going to give them some access. I want them to be able to see their customer information and their project information, but only one project, and I don't want them to see all the rest of this. Service items, messages, walls, financial data. Let's take a look at how we do that. Each of those areas is represented down below here, so we could peel each one back, but we're just going to do projects and customer information. Which ones can they see? Well, if I use this custom rule, I can say I only want them to be able to see those where the company actually has the name Acme in it. That's one way of doing it, and that's fine for the customer. How about modifying? Which ones can they modify? We could do the exact same thing. I only want them to update their record, which is one where the company contains Acme. And I'll say OK. And I may say I don't want them to add records, delete, or anything, and that's fine. Let's move down to projects. Which projects do we want them to see? Well, that custom rule applies, and we could say where the project contains Acme, just like what we just did, where the company contains Acme. But I'm going to override this a little bit and go down and just show you a little other flexibility. How about the project name contains web presence? That means out of all the projects that Acme has, they only see one. And you can be more specific about any other piece of information that you have here. Maybe that the priority is or is not or contains or doesn't contain high or medium or low, and you can define that. Or you can add more lines where the assigned to person or the project lead here is or isn't or contains a particular person. Maybe it's Chris Baker. It's got to be the project manager in order for this to be seen. This is so open to conversation that you can take this anywhere you want, but I'm going to just accept it by the name being web presence. Modify. I don't want them to modify anything. I do want them to add, give us another project if they want to. No deleting, no making of those official reports, no customization, which you could turn on for any special team member that's going to be doing customization, but we're not doing that for this client. We also can look at the details, because inside each project plan there's some information that we might not want to share. We may not want to share the statement of work document that was here. We may not want to come down and do anything to do with budgets. Maybe the gross profit margin is not visible. No access to those. Remaining amounts, no access. Profitability, profit, none. The notes is a really popular thing to hide because you might use that for internal conversations with your team members. You can touch every part of QuickBase, anything you can say out loud. I'm going to say save here. We're done here for example purposes here. We've defined what they can do here. Let's go over to the user interface. And that's a nice word of saying, well, what they can see. And this is their dashboard. And by default, it says default. We're at a project manager level 4 right now, but not Acme. Acme has their own dashboard that we created in the beginning of this. And we can also shut off the drop-down boxes that are up above, and also shut off the functionality that internally we use as team members. But up above here, they don't need to see all this information. Let me save this. This is the other half of what they can do and what they can see. And now if I want to make sure I click save. Did I do that? Yeah, I did. That role exists with that behavior. Now all we need is their email address, and we can share this with them. And let's say it's John Acme at acmeisus.com. And John's invited, when we invite them here, to behave like that, and that's all. That's the conditions on this. We can send them a little note if we want to. Hey, John, uh, check out your project anytime, Kirk. And then we hit send. That's a quick way of inviting them, adding them in. He's now added to your account. It costs your account $3 to have John in here. And it doesn't matter if he's in 1,000 different applications in your organization or one. It costs $3 to have John here in your account. Now, QuickBase is $249 a month for the first 10 users and $3 for each additional user after that. If you take John out of the mix because the project's over, you can recycle that user account because he's no longer counted in your access controllers. You can give it to somebody else. Maybe it's the Barclay client that you have going on, and you're rotating recycling your user accounts. We can pretend to be what it's like to be Acme so that we get an idea with our login here what it's like. Let's click on that. Now I'm going to click save, and you're going to see that these are going to go away. So let's do that. Save. There we go. They've disappeared because we have made ourselves an Acme client. Let's go to the dashboard. Remember, the dashboard is different for a client. And yes, it is. It says Welcome Acme Staple Company. And it only is showing one out of those 6 projects we had. We can click Add Projects. Great. You remember the report List All? If I said List Projects, look what happens. They can only see one. If we're a project manager or any project manager, and we wanted to come back to life and look at through the eyes of a project manager and behave like that, you'll see that List All actually has many other ones, but the definition of their role dictates that they only see the things that they're supposed to see when they're supposed to see it. So what have we done? We've taken a look at QuickBase. We've looked at the core functions of QuickBase. This is a dashboard which we were able to modify and create a new dashboard for Acme. We looked at the projects. We listed all the projects, and we looked at one in particular called the Increased Web Presence one. We right-clicked and added things. We right-clicked and edited the name of them. We looked at updating information in our project plan. We also added messages here and looked at how we might use documents. We came up to the tasks and actually created an email notification which allowed us to receive an email notification. Let's see if Yahoo's delivered that yet. Yes, here it is. Click, click, increase, create a brochure. There it is. Glad to show this before the webinar is over. It looks just like what it did in QuickBase. And in fact, if I click on the link here, it'll take me right into that particular task inside of QuickBase, just like that. And I'm inside QuickBase now. If this email was forwarded to somebody, they wouldn't be able to get this. So we looked at this. We added time cards. We've looked at the numbers that are reflected here. All that information is summarized up to the individual projects here. And then what we did was we created a number of reports. We looked at timelines. We looked at just creating a report from borrowing from another report. You can also create reports from scratch just as easily. And then we shared QuickBase. We came in and we managed the roles. We created one for Acme right down here. And we set up what they can do and what they can see. And then we invited John Acme in. We shared this with them. Now we've taken this is less than an hour view of QuickBase, but all QuickBases work the same way. They all have dashboards, they all have forms, they all have reports, they all have email notifications and reminders, and they all have security involved in them. So we've touched on all of that functionality inside of QuickBase. Let's summarize what we've got here. Inside every QuickBase is a help button in the upper corner where you can click on and get customer support. There's free technical support. Absolutely put your name in here. There's a button on the page here. Enter a support case. Our support group is very proud of hitting or responding to 93% of all cases within 50 minutes of the business day when they're entered. It's really an exciting metric. We have a concierge group, which it will help you decide which application is best. We have a developer network if you want to get fancy with integration with other systems that you might have. A community forum of customers talking to customers. A wonderful knowledge base. QuickBase was purchased Intuit purchased it in 1999, and we do 2 releases a year. And over the years, people have asked many questions in our knowledge base, and there are great how-tos in there as well as video tutorials. So let's wind down the webinar here. There are no contracts with QuickBase. You can use it for anything. Obviously, hopefully it's obvious to you now, but there's no servers or software to get up and going, no IT special resources to use, and since there's no contracts to worry about, you're not buying anything, you're really just enabling your teams to be able to work collaboratively. Use it as a rapid application platform. Use it for 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things. You're going to find that you can use it for virtually anything, and the best way to get started is really just to jump in. Use the concierge, use our technical support, but more importantly, come to these webinars. Thanks very much. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.